Letting go and making room for change in my life is really hard, whether it be people, places, and things that I love and care about, or people, places, and things that aren't healthy for me. It's all hard, but I have two choices: let go and make room, or hold on and suffer. I decide to let go. Hi, everybody. Kevin Barheit here. Thanks for tuning in. When I first stopped using drugs and alcohol, it left a gap in my life the size of the universe. It was like giving up my lover, my best friend, my wife, my children, my parents, and my God all in one moment. And the worst part about that is I felt like nothing could ever replace it. Nothing could ever fill that gap. But sometimes letting go and making room isn't just about staying away from the drink and the drug and letting go of the bad behavior. Sometimes it's about letting go and making room when we lose people that we love. I know that my dad loved me, and I know I loved him greatly. As a father, a young father, he did everything that he could to be my dad and to make me his son. Even as an adoptive child, I knew that my dad cherished me in every single way that he possibly could. But there were so many things as I grew up that broke that connection that we had, that snapped in two, in many ways, the ability for each of us to even cherish the moments we did have together. The pieces that broke us in two, the pieces that widened that gap were so many. I know being adopted as a child, there was a distance between us. My being abused and being molested at a young age, and I was hurt, and he wasn't there for me. My dad getting sick when I was very young, just a few years. It all happened around the same time that I'd been molested, that I started to drink and use drugs, and him not recovering from the heart surgery fully, I think broke us in two and gave me a different perspective on who my father was. Not a strong man that could protect me, but someone who couldn't take care of himself. And as time went on and the drugs and the alcohol and the behavior that came along with my fear and anxiety started to manifest, and I was taken out of my parents' home and put into foster care, my father not being able to fight for me, to stand up and say, no, that's my son, you won't take him, to see that in my eyes at that point as a weakness was defining and made me feel helpless, hopeless, and resent him and eventually really hate him. But that didn't stop us from trying over the years. Even through all the addiction, he tried, he loved me, he cared, tried to show up for me and help me in every turn. I thwarted most of those efforts, of course, I would say. I hurt him more than I could ever make amends for. But I did make amends, because I did get clean and sober, and I did find recovery. And although the letting go of the drugs and the alcohol and the lifestyle was hard at first, it was the staying let go, keeping myself in a place where I wasn't reaching back out for that drug, reaching back out for that alcohol, reaching back out for the lifestyle and the behaviors. That was one of the hardest pieces. It's a scary place when everything you know and love and cherish and that feels like who you are is absent, is gone, is missing. And the drugs and the alcohol and the lifestyle that came around that was that for me. It was my everything, my all, my God, my creator. But letting go and staying let go allowed for new things to come into my life. The first thing that came into my life was the meetings. 12-step meetings, even for just 1 hour at a time, opened me up to a change, opened me up to something new, some different possibilities. I couldn't really hear what was being said in the rooms half the time, and I certainly couldn't raise my hand and share. But just sitting there for that 1 hour was an hour without drinking, was an hour without drugs, was an hour without my heart pounding out of my chest and the sweat had a chance to dry. The biggest difference was instead of going towards the drugs and the alcohol, I was going towards a meeting. Instead of going towards the drugs and alcohol, I was going towards my sponsor. I was going towards relationships with people that were healthy, places that were supportive of me, and things in my life that would help me to become the kind of person that I wanted to be. I could walk away from the drugs and alcohol with a lot of confidence if I was heading towards my higher power. And that was the relationship that was the key for me. This translated really quickly in many ways to being a better father, to being a better husband, to being a better son for my parents. But when my dad got sick and near death, I had been clean and sober for over 20 years at that point. And I was so grateful for that time that I could spend with him, that I could care for him, that my parents both trusted me to help them make decisions, to talk to doctors, to talk to hospice. I think that last month and then the last week and the last days and the last hours felt like our reward, our gift to each other and from each other, the time we could spend together, the complete dependence and trust he had on me, and the complete reliance that I allowed him to have on me. I stepped up, but he stepped up too. His biggest gift to me was letting me care for him. After my dad died, I began the process of grieving. It was some ways similar to when I gave up the drugs and alcohol. It was like losing everything that ever mattered to me. As we sorted through his belongings and looked at some of the things that we wanted to keep, there were a couple of pieces of clothing that I kept of his. They were just sweaters, oversized sweatshirts that he used to wear. And he was a large man, so they really surrounded me and comforted me. I wore them every night. I wore them even in the summertime sometimes when I slept. After a few years of wearing these clothes and washing them and drying them and wearing them and washing them and drying them, they started to get a little bit worn out. Some of them had holes in them, but I wanted to keep them forever. But then one day I realized it was time to let go. They weren't really making me feel comforted anymore. They were making me feel sad. And I knew that deep down, my dad didn't want me to feel sad. He wanted me to know that he was okay. And he wanted me to know that I was going to be okay. So I took the sweatshirts out to the backyard and I made a fire in our fire pit. And I had a nice chat with my dad. And then I prayed. And I put the sweatshirts on the fire. And I said goodbye. And I let go. And I knew I was going to be okay. Because I knew I was going to be making room. Making room for new people in my life to support me. Making room for my higher power in my life. But also making room for new memories of my father. Making room for the new relationship I could have with him. Making room for the new pieces that we would put together for the rest of my life. I miss my dad even more this holiday season than I have for years. It's been a few years since I had that ceremony in the backyard, and it's been 9 years since he died. But I know that I need to continue to let go, not so that I can walk away from him, but so I can walk toward a new relationship with him, a new understanding of who he is to me and who we are to each other. That's really special to me, knowing that that's possible. That's really special to me, knowing that's what my higher power wants for me. And it's important to me because now I know that letting go doesn't have to be an ending. It can be a beginning. It's not just walking away from, it's walking toward. And I want to do that with my higher power. And I want to do that with my Father. And I want to do that with you. Thanks for taking the time today. If you're a subscriber, thanks for watching. If you're not, please subscribe. Make sure you like the video. Make sure to share. See you next week. Take care.